All right. If you're staying for the town hall meeting, which we hope you are, come find a seat, and we'll begin just in a moment. All right. Wow. Great. You guys very quickly got to your seats and quiet. Amazing. All right. I'm going to pray for our time, and then we'll kind of tell you, we're going to go through these four items one by one. Lord, thanks for this church. Thank you for a chance to worship together. Pray for this meeting now, just be to update and dialogue about important things in the life of our church. So we're grateful for conversation. In Jesus' name. All right. Someone get that kid quiet over there. We're going to start off with a Sunday community update. This is actually the last Sunday day of Sunday communities, and yet we're looking kind of forward to the fall, and so wanted to kind of bring something to your attention as the staff and leaders plan for that. We really think this hour between 11 and 12, as we do it, is a vital discipleship hour. We've always had it since the beginning of the church, and we've done it right after worship in the hopes that families, individuals, kids, all the way to adults would stay and see that time. And so we appreciate our leaders who kind of prepare lessons. And so we just as a staff wanted to encourage that as we're ending now, but as we look towards the fall of seeing that, we also want to sort of get some feedback from you guys in this next couple weeks in order that we can plan accordingly for just what their expectations of participation are in things. I'm going to have Christy explain the survey that we've done up as a staff that we're going to email out tomorrow, I think, or even today, and ask for you to participate in, just so that we kind of know realistically where folks are in terms of desires to participate. Christy.
Okay, so like Clint said, especially for Grace Kids, Sunday Communities is a vital time of fellowship and discipleship because we just don't have another avenue to do that regularly, and so we just really find it super important. But overall, we just wanted to kind of hear some feedback of what things you liked and didn't like about Sunday Communities. So in the email that's coming tomorrow, you'll get 2 this week and not 3. Sorry about last week. But tomorrow, we'll send an overview of this meeting, and inside of that meeting, there'll be a link to the survey that, Trey, if you could go to the next screen. It's going to have, it will ask for your email. We really just want to kind of know who we're hearing from, but we're not going to come back and be like, I can't believe that person said it. So please don't make that hinder you from being honest in your answers or from answering the survey. So it starts off with that. Then it will have some general questions about Sunday Communities. The next slide shows you how it's going to ask some questions about adults. And then at the end of the adult section, it will ask if you have a middle schooler or a high schooler. And if you do, you'll go to this section. If you don't, you'll go to another question that asks if you have any kids in elementary or preschool. And if you do, you'll get this final section. If you don't, you'll go to the final slide, which I didn't put on here, but you'll go to the final slide that just asks for additional comments or questions or suggestions. And so it is a pretty quick survey, so we really hope that that all of you really will fill it out, that we get full participation, and your honest feedback will be so helpful as we begin to look at the fall, shockingly. So that's going to be in tomorrow's email, and it'll probably also be in the weekly email and maybe sent another time, I don't know.
Depends on that.
Yeah. I have a housekeeping thing for you guys, everyone in the room. If you have kids that are in Grace Kids today, at the end of the meeting at 12, please go down to room 205 to pick them up. They are not going to deliver kids to the cafeteria today because it's just a little too chaotic. So if you have a child that is in room 205, please go at the end of this meeting quickly to get your child or children from those wonderful teachers who are having fun with them this morning. And then they can all clean up and everyone can go home. But at the end of the meeting, which will, if it's not noon, it's at noon. Even if the meeting is not over, please go get your kids at noon. I won't be here to come yell at you guys to go get your kids. So please go get them quickly. I have to go to a dance recital now. So bye, everyone.
You wouldn't yell. You wouldn't yell anyway, Christy. Come on. Just an encouragement. Like as Christy said, Grace Kids. Because kids at a younger age don't need as much social interaction with their peers. There's less in Grace Kids. There's kind of different opportunities we give for equipping outside of the Sunday. But a lot of the Grace Kids discipleship is on Sunday morning, and so we really do encourage that. And Sunday communities is obviously a voluntary, it's not compulsory. Like coming to worship, kind of important. We want to talk to you if not coming to worship. But Sunday community is just another opportunity for us to learn and grow. And some of you might feel like, oh, I already have those opportunities. I don't really want to participate. Knowing that is fine. That's kind of the stuff we want to hear back. We actually want a good gauge on what we can offer and what we maybe don't want to ask people to volunteer and prepare lessons for if participation isn't going to be there. So the more honest you can be on this is my intention, the more helpful, particularly for student ministry, middle school, high school, and adult ministry, if that's clear. All right. Any questions about that before we go to the second thing on our agenda? And that would be Mr. Augustine.
So I'm Eric Augustine. I'm a deacon here at the church, and part of our responsibilities as a diaconate is to form the church budget. You guys should have got an email earlier in the week from just a recap of the town hall from the last Sunday, and it also included the budget. First, I want to just thank Stephen Webb, who has led the finance team for several years, for his leadership. I also want to thank Trent and Trey Hayden for their willingness to come on to the finance team. It's not a glorious team, but it's, small and mighty. That's what we are. So, but I appreciate their willingness to join the team. Let me just give you kind of a layout going left to right. You can see that this is the current year. From our fiscal year is July to June. So you could see it went from July 2025 to these numbers are through March. Because school's ending at the end of May, we used to be able to do our budget update in June. So it's kind of pushed it up. So we have had to draw a line. So we go through March using March actual numbers. The middle column you can see is the actual budget for this year, where we budgeted $500,000 in offerings, and our total expenses were $467. And looking at March's numbers compared to the budget, we had a $77,000 kind of net income, kind of a surplus because our offerings are we're ahead of budgeted offerings through March. So it's a blessing. It's, looking at the budget and coming back onto the finance team, I remembered we had a budget of $75,000 and one person. So, we've grown. As you can see where we're meeting today, we've grown and, God's always provided. And looking back and preparing the budget, we made it through a pandemic, which a lot of churches didn't. I mean, when I was preparing the budget for that time, kind of scared me because I was like, there's just a lot of unknowns. And then you see churches that you think were going to survive and they didn't. So it's truly a blessing. I know when I see the numbers, I'm a little risk averse. I kind of want to go more conservative. But then I got to think, thinking about the last song, how we were talking about God's always faithful, and He is. And a lot of times, I put self-doubt, and then I get reminded as I put out these numbers and then think about what the church has accomplished. We own 2 properties with no debt. We survived the pandemic. So then it's like, well, these numbers are very small and everything. I need to be more faithful and trust, that He's always providing for us. And I just hope that as we look at this and, there's people in leadership that are good stewards. It's not like we're out there looking to just spend money and buy brand new stuff, or we got people with skills and talents that are willing to try to fix stuff before we spend a lot of money to, a classic example is looking at our ministry house, the amount of time and effort that people put in using their skills and stuff to help the church save money. And you guys can see the end result, how the space is widely used. It's kind of almost too much used that a lot of people we have to tell them, hey, sorry, somebody already beat you to it. But that's a good thing. It's a good thing that the youth want to meet, so there's blessings in it. And I just want everybody to know that, we strive to be good stewards of our money. We know it's not ours, it's for the glory of God. It's to honor those and reach people in the community and the Richmond area. So, and I think we're doing a really good job of that. Another thing is we planted 3 churches. So you look at the church now, if we just kept to ourselves and didn't plant, we would probably be double the size. But we trust and we were faithful and we continue to thrive. And it was sad to see people leave and plant another church, but to see City Church, how successful they are, to see other churches, how they're blossoming too. It just kind of goes with our mission to, spread the gospel and reach people that might not be able to hear it. So just some food for thought as, we look at these numbers. A lot of people are like, I'm not a numbers person, but you got to look beyond the numbers. What have we accomplished as a church? And that kind of eases my mind. I mean, if you look at the last column, this is our budget number for the upcoming year. So I know I have it in red there, but it's like 500,000 to 594,000. That's a big jump. But in that big jump is what we've talked about. So we're adding potential staff. So a full-time youth, which we've done so much work to build up the youth program. We want to continue to grow that. I know we had, you kind of see the progression of the youth. Now they're in college, but we don't want to fall back to where we were, because we still have a lot of young kids coming up, and we want to continue to grow that. And there's potential you see the morning groups. Half the kids that come to morning groups aren't part of our church. Say they do start coming, we want to be able to have that infrastructure in place to support that and not just, just let it fall to waste. We want to be able to be a place where youth feel appreciated and comforted and can, seek out God. I mean, I think some people are like, oh, a lot of these kids don't even go to our church. I was like, but we planted the seed. You just never know when it's going to grow. So I look at it as they're coming. To get a teenager to get up 6 a.m, yes, it's breakfast, but to get them to get up early any other time, that's hard to do. But to see them come, even juniors, my daughter's a junior, they're about to be seniors, and they're still coming. So I think it's very fruitful. So I appreciate all the volunteers that are helping them out in the mornings and giving up their time and, pursuing them through college, because we have mentors that have followed the freshmen that go to college. So it's not just, hey, you made it through high school, we're done with you. So I appreciate, that. So, looking at this budget, it's a 15.8% increase over this year's budget. Once again, it's with the addition of the 2 staff. But looking at it, we're already projected to be past the 500,000 in offerings for this year. We're projecting that we're going to end up at 550. So that's a blessing in itself. So even at 550,000, if we end at that, it's a 7.8% increase to go from 550 to 594,000. That's a little more, manageable when you see it. But once again, it's just a constant reminder that we got to trust, and God's always provided. Like I said, I'm risk averse, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to show these, but it's not up to me. I got to trust in the Lord that He's always going to provide, and He has. He's always been there, and He's always helped, ease our mind and many blessings. So that's why in this budget you'll see that the total payroll is a big jump, is because of the youth and the music. And then as you could look down, just some of the other categories, it's what I do is I send it out to the ministry teams, get their feedback of, hey, this is what you spent this year, this is what you budgeted last year, and then, hey, what do you have for next year? I know there's people talking about like they wanted to expand on conferences, add, being able to offer that to some of the team members that serve on, some of their ministry teams. And we want to be able to help them, facilitate that, to be able to help grow other leaders in the ministry. So, and then just basic, like accounting for office and supplies. We have licensing for our accounting software, and we have fees for our website, and they're all kind of, might be 2-year cycle or maybe 1-year cycle, but they're renewals. So, and of course the rates are going up. So just trying to budget for those costs. And then this year we added the second ministry house, because last year we didn't purchase it by the time we did budget, so there was really no item line for any of the costs. So this year we had to budget for maintenance, utilities, for that second house. So that's why you see, part of the increase in the budget. And then I think that's pretty much it. If you have any other questions that you want to ask, I'll open it up. But even if you don't have any questions right now and you want to reach out afterwards, you should have my email. I think it'll be attached to the update. And you could always just reach out to me, and I'll try to get you that information that you're seeking. So, but I guess we'll open up for questions. So Mercy is a little bit different. I will get you the number of what they spent, but we kind of don't budget for Mercy because we don't know kind of what, like it's not a budget line that we come up with in our general budget, because we keep that separate. But I can get you the numbers from that from Melissa's.
But in general on that, Mercy budget for the first 15 years of our church is probably in the $5,000 to $10,000 in and out. In the last 4 years, it's jumped to 30, 50, 75 last year. And I think it's actually headed to more this year. So, but one of our emphases in terms of strategy, objectives for ministry that Comet team that's working is also kind of tracking with. We're seeing the church voluntarily give. The Mercy Fund's always been a once a month separate fund from the general fund, but it's had a noticeable increase in the last 4 years of money in and money out. We have a pretty robust, because of recent gifts, we have a very robust fund right now. And one other thing on that what is budgeted is missions. So missions is always 15% of the budgeted income, and we figured that out in the spring. So that is reflected in the budget as well, and is going up, looks like from $77,000 to $82,000, and that's managed by our missions team.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a note to we add that as a part of the update.
Any other questions for Eric or whoever wants to answer them?
Yes. So the staff was given a 3.4% raise for this year, which is in line. I think last year we gave 3.5.
I did ask for other people to answer questions, and I think I'm going to take Ashley's as a answer to that question. Maybe when Garrett comes into this position, that can be reflected in the budget at some point. Yes.
I think the ladies are better planners, I guess. The men was like they only had 2 lines, and it was like, you guys want to do anything else? So, I don't know.
We'll take that as answer B to the question. Any other questions? Yes, Andrew.
So it's admin, which is property taxes, and then utilities, and then maintenance. Before, when we started, I think we only had 2 lines, but then like utility, Wi-Fi, so basic running the house, and then some of the maintenance for maintaining the house, maintaining the property of the house. Those are some of the costs. We will, going into this next budget year, we have already set up to break out costs because it was all kind of lumped in one because we only had 1 house. So we'll have a better idea. But the property taxes were kind of a big issue for us because the county didn't recognize us as, nonprofit, and it was a battle. But through Stephen's work, we were able to get that resolved. So hopefully we'll see a decrease in the property tax.
I think it's set now. I think
Yeah.
Stephen was able to correct the county.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, there's no mortgage cost. We own the homes outright, so it's all operating. And we've taken that money. We have a separate building fund, which Plot will talk about next. But all the operating expenses of the house are now in the main budget. So it's only sort of one-time costs or purchase other bigger expenses that would come out of the building fund. So we have a building fund, mercy fund, and general fund. So now all the operating expenses of those homes are in our general fund.
So part of that is it's for the operating. So right now we're kind of, along with the plot, going to try to figure out the use for that property. So for the main ministry house, it's a lot of use, a lot of upkeep, a lot of maintenance. We kind of put it like a placeholder for this year to kind of guesstimate and see what we're going to do with the property, what's going to happen with it. We kind of don't want to put too much and we tried to do like a conservative budget for it because people aren't going to be over there meeting right now, but just trying to have some money set aside for, I think we'll have to do like yard maintenance and some maintenance around it, but just try to put a placeholder in there, and then as this year goes by, we'll have a better idea for future budgets on what we need to do or what we need to put aside for it.
All right, so this budget will go after this feedback. If you have any other feedback, that'd be good to give it today. The elders actually meet tomorrow and we'll vote. The elders, by Book of Church order, approve the budget. So we want to get feedback from folks. So we'll probably do that tomorrow, and then that starts July 1, this budget. Thanks, Eric. Let me give prayer. Lord, thank you, as Eric said well, for your generosity towards the Lord from this congregation allows us to move forward. Even the surplus allows us to move forward. Garrett moving in time to this new role and hiring back for youth ministry and the part-time music ministry that we believe is important to push us forward as part of our ministry objectives that we looked at a year or 2 ago. So we're grateful for just kind of living out in your provision in the midst of that, and we're grateful for this time and this feedback. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, I'll invite up the plot team here, and I'm going to hopefully move down here because I think I can talk less on the plot team. So I'll move to this spot.
Good morning. I think based on time, we're going to move with some pace. I feel like Christy's not here, but she's still watching us. So, we last gave an update in February and wanted to get back together and give an update on where we stand and some new developments. Trey, if you could put us through to our team slide. First, our names are on the board just as a refresher. We won't go through all that today. Do want to introduce Craig Jacob. He has joined our team as well recently, and we're very thankful for that. So our team has grown a little bit, and again, Good to have you on board, Craig. Our agenda for today, we're going to touch on 4 topics. One, provide an update on our architect info sessions that we had been having. We talked about that last time. Share a partner selection and talk about exactly what that means. And then go through reviewing the process and deliverables and then next steps. So we'll kind of just walk through each of those things. And again, I'm sure there's questions, so we'll move with pace just to make sure there's some time at the end to go through Q&A. So the info sessions with architects, I think when we met last time, we had already met with 2. Does that sound right? We've met with 3 firms face-to-face, and we'll say researched and looked into others as well. But we did meet with 3 firms face-to-face, and really, I think when it started, it was more focused on education, like we're learning what this process looks like as we figure out how to plan and go through all the options associated with building out a property. But it also doubled as interviews, right? We're interviewing these folks, trying to see what they're all about, what would the relationship look like. So it was really a super productive time, really beneficial. The things we dug into with each of them, just kind of going through what the process looked like for us. We reviewed the firm's history and structure, how they're built. Obviously, a lot of focus on their experience with churches, obviously being a priority, and not only the design and build type of things, but really their process. What did that look like? What would an engagement look like? How do they engage a team, a leadership team like we might be for the church or the church directly? So we wanted to understand all of that. And we looked big picture, not only the initial phase, which we'll talk about here momentarily, but we also talked, what does that look like long term, right? So, if we were to kick off building a building, what that process might look like. And then ultimately worked towards getting priced proposals from each of those candidates for what we'll term a phase 1 of an engagement. So coming out of that, Trey, if you go forward 1, please. We have selected one of those 3. It's called Worley and Associates. And just want to kind of go through, we'll talk through what that means by selecting and engaging an architect in a second, but just our selection criteria. 1, meeting with them. All 3 were great candidates, but this group just stood out to us. Very, very well prepared, great presentation, tailored to us, as a group and a church. The 2 representatives we met with, both great history in engaging with churches, but also had personal history independently with their own churches of going through this process. So there's just a lot of, we'll say, understanding and relationship right out of from that point right away. The size of the firm is 10 to 12 folks, and I don't know that it was intentional, but the 3 groups that we met with were very different sizes. So one group was 2 people, one was much larger, and this was the middle-sized of the 3. And from my perspective, I think the team's perspective, it provided the right capacity and capability within the group, meaning enough horsepower to work with us, but also a very personal relationship that was seemingly part of their process. So that was exciting for us. It's a local group out of Richmond with local contractors and partners that they have worked with historically, which was also attractive. And I think probably the biggest thing for us as we were going through, we were very comfortable with them in terms of defining our goals, initially high picture, but goals and deliverables coming out of a phase 1 of an engagement. They were comfortable, we were comfortable. It just made us feel better in that conversation. Something to share, of course, and to highlight, the plot team doesn't work in a vacuum or unilaterally. So we went through this process as information gathering, evaluating all of the content we were able to collect, and ultimately take it back to the elders and deacons and say, okay, this is what we've learned, this is what we recommend as a team, and this is the cost associated with that recommendation. So that has happened. That happened, I don't know, a month and a half ago, and we have been approved through that leadership group to proceed. How we doing? Okay. Good so far? Okay. All right. Next slide, Trey. So phase 1, again, we're engaging Worley and Associates. This phase one, which is really looking big picture, what we're trying to figure out now, and we've heard the questions, why would we engage an architect now versus maybe when we're in a better position to build some years down the road? The reason we're doing this is because the information we'll gain through the process is pretty important. You know, is building on the property a $1 million or $20 million effort, right? And it's somewhere in the middle there. Those are very, very broad brackets, but we just need to figure out what does that look like. That sets timing, that sets strategies related to the new house that we've acquired. It sets off a lot of different things strategy-wise for the church. So we felt it important to engage now because it would be a now or a later. We'd have to engage at some point, and it really helps us in the discussions and the planning part. So the three things that are going to come out of this exercise are programming, master planning, and conceptual design services. I think we talked about the programming last time when we were together, which is really defining the spatial and functional needs for the church. Even when you think about Oak Knoll when we were moving here, it was, all right, list out everything we need to do, what spaces, what cost, the timing, and that's here, which is a much smaller scale than a new building would be. So this is something that we'll engage with leadership on, the ministries, individual folks that have certain roles here that are maybe unique, but understanding everything that's needed for the broader church, big picture and in short term, again, because this would be a multi-phased effort down the road for a build. So that's programming, master planning, a lot related to the site. Last time there were several questions for Keith. It gets complicated when you start looking at the property and you include the factors from the airport and the neighbors and VDOT and water management and all kinds of things that'll make your head spin. But it gets complicated, so that's part of this, and these folks are experts in that and would support that effort. And then probably the most exciting part of it is the conceptual design services. So we would work towards a conceptual floor plan, sketch style renderings. You know, we can go pretty high tech with 3D renderings and all those other things if we want to pay for it. We're not at that point, so we're going to stay with more basic, the sketch style renderings, which seem to be appropriate at this point. But that'll be an output of this engagement. And then finally, and very important, a rough order of magnitude cost for whatever we're talking about. So that is the process. And the deliverables, and we have a much more extensive description of all these deliverables that would not fit on the screen, but we do have that all worked out, and that would be our guide for the process. So next steps. So the plot team remains. We would be the point of contact for the architect and throughout the engagement. What we would help do is engage the congregation. Again, a lot of information gathering, that would continue, but like I'd mentioned, leadership, certain ministries, and really not only now what our needs are, but what might the needs be 2 or 3 or 10 years from now. We want to try to kind of get that worked out at least at some level. We'll partner with the firm through the assessment and the requirements definition just to make sure we have a reasonably good target that we're starting with. And then I like to say we're providing the guardrails for them. Like, this is what they do. They're going to guide us through this process. But we need to make sure that we're staying on course and we're targeting the milestones and the deliverables that we need as a group. So that will continue, or that will kick off, I should say, and then we will be engaged throughout. And then we will continue with town halls and other updates in writing through this format. But what we would love is the continued feedback. We've received quite a bit of feedback in terms of questions, suggestions. Hey, I saw this before or lived through this before, and it's really helpful to hear that, and we share it and we document it. But we'd encourage you to keep doing that and really hit any of the folks on the team. We're all connected and talking regularly. I guess big picture, as we kick this off, our goal would be to have this phase 1 done by end of year. And I think probably if we don't hit end of year, it might be us slowing it down versus them slowing it down, is what I gather, because we try to do things as a team. So, but that is our target, is to have this phase 1 completed by end of year, and then that could inform the larger group of options moving forward, and hopefully we can start talking some level of plans from there. So I went through that really fast. Questions? Yeah. I think the cost component will dictate the duration there, right? So if it comes back, and again, very, very broad numbers, 1 million versus 20 million, and it is neither of those, it's somewhere in the middle. But if it's a $20 million project, that is a long outlook. And if it is a much smaller number, it's a shorter outlook. So I think that's part of what we want to understand as a church. If it's a longer number, we may want to do a lot of things with the new house that we just acquired and do maybe other things to the property that continue to add value for the church and the community. If it's a smaller number, maybe we're leaner on some of those investments and we focus towards what the building might be. Really, that's why we want to do this exercise, is because we have to learn and try to put that as part of the plan. Yes. And Pamela said likely it's phased. So what we would anticipate is defining what, I think we said it last time, what is our dream, like functionally what is our dream and what we'd want this property to be, and then, okay, what does a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 look like, so we could build it out and, as soon as possible, obviously have a space that we can use and grow in, but then continue to set money aside for building that out over time. What did I miss in the update so far?
I think you've done a great job. Oh. I think part of the goal was that we want to give me to speak back to the congregation. This is we can use this property. This is what it would look like, and give you guys a vision of that, because I think that helps move us forward with whatever comes next in terms of plans.
It's a good question. It's something we wrestled with, and it's all a cost, an investment decision up front. So we're working towards what we'll say is one central master plan, knowing that getting there is going to have a lot of different conversations as part of that, right? And we'll probably go through things and kind of set some aside, but have that as a target versus, because we did talk to them about that, do we want 3 or 5, or how many plans do you want? And it was just driving the cost number up. So we were going to start with the one master plan, knowing that we'll probably just keep documenting and learning about some others as we go through it. Thank you. Yeah, a great question. So when we talk about master plan, I think we're referring to what is on paper and kind of like a vision for what the property could be. Again, I think a lot comes back to numbers. So understanding what the cost of doing what we might be envisioning is a huge part of that. And it might change our master plan for what the property should be, right? So this, I'm viewing this really as an investment in educating ourselves on what the options could be, and then allowing leadership of the church to try to set a direction that is healthy for the church and attainable for the church. But just because what comes out of this engagement is called a master plan, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we do. I think it's more so, hey, this is what you've drawn up, this is what you guys define as the need. How do we chop it up into maybe phases, and does this still make sense? So I guess we're not at a point where we say this is the goal. We're not even close. Yeah, I think that's what we'll hopefully learn coming out of this, of what we can and can't do.
But maybe to also piggyback on that, the buying these two properties, especially the second property, but really even the first one, was the hope to be able to have a church sanctuary worship on that space, like, and have kind of do everything there. So that's why we're pursuing this, is to, that'll be part of the conversation. They've already, I think one of the meetings already asked, well, how big a sanctuary, how many seats would you want? Like, those kind of questions are part of this whole plan, to sort of see, also just laying it out on that property, things that Keith talked about last time, like where could you put it? How would it work? What are the costs associated with clearing the site? All those kind of things. So that is the goal to go. And then for us as a church to wrestle with, this is where we could go. This is what it would look like. And this is how much it costs. And how are we going to get there?
We've tried to work our way towards some of this information through the architects initially, and it's it's pretty vague, right? So we were trying to get down the road faster at a lesser cost. But just one other thing, you know, we mentioned the 3 architects that we spoke with. We did get pricing from those. All the pricing for the most part is, you know, same ballpark for the different groups. And we were talking to other groups that weren't, man, what pressure. Jeez. My heart's beating a mile a minute, Trey. Yeah, where is she?
Did Christy pay for you to do that?
So, I'll end there. So are there other questions? I'm assuming this will go out in the bulletin or in the, I should say, in the weekly email, some of the updates.
Yes, and this record will be recorded in case you want to watch it again.
Yeah. So certainly reach out to any of us with questions. We'd love to hear them. Well, there's another.
Yeah, that update's going to be very short. Hiring team update, good news. We have 2 hiring teams. They are organized and have job descriptions and are putting things out. So they hit the ground running. That's enough of an update, I think, for where we are in terms of our day. Maybe I'm going to ask Reed Jacob to pray for this update from Plot and moving forward